And our friends were Christians. And it got to the point where the Christians were afraid for their lives because they were so intimidated by the Muslims, by the Palestinian Muslims. The Palestinian Muslims would go into Christian cemeteries. They would break the crosses. They would dig the bodies. And when we would do interviews with these Christians, we had to disguise their face because their life was threatened just because they were telling the truth. Because if their Muslim neighbors ever found out that they're speaking about what they're being subjected to, they would be killed. The intimidation and the death threats were unbelievable. In the old city of Jerusalem, when I was working as a news anchor, in the Christian quarter, a few Christian girls were walking back from Catholic school, dressed in the Catholic uniform. And there were a few incidences where Muslim Palestinian students would throw acid on the Christian girls' faces. A couple girls were deformed because of acids and had to be taken into Israeli hospitals. I was able to see the Israeli side that always believes the best, hopes for peace, teach their children that one day we're going to have peace with the Palestinians. One day we're going to have peace with our Arab neighbors. And we're going to do everything we can to achieve that peace. Yet you would go visit the Palestinians, and the Palestinians teach their children, one day we're going to kill all the Jews and drive them into the sea. I saw nothing but two faces. One, a face of hate and evil, and one, a face of love and compassion. And that's what the situation is between the Palestinians and the Israelis.
Well, what sort of danger did you face from Islamic terror organizations while you were in Israel?
I was very worried for my life because in the Middle East, when you speak the truth, when you report honestly about the facts and what's going on, your life gets threatened. Because if the Palestinian media cannot control what you're saying, if the Arabic government cannot control what you're saying, you are a major threat to them because you are informing the population of what is truly happening. And that's what I did when I worked for Middle East television. They tried to assassinate me in Lebanon. They tried to shoot at me one day when I was walking home. They thought I was dead. I played dead in a ditch until they left, and then I crawled home. They chased me in Israel twice. I was chased for 2 hours, one time between Tel Aviv and Haifa. I traveled wearing different wigs so people would not recognize who I am. I would always disguise my appearance. People in America do not realize that here in this country, we can voice our opinion. We can even cuss the president on national television. And we never ever have to fear for our lives because we have freedom of press, freedom of speech. In the Middle East, there is no such thing. There is no freedom of press. If you go against the tide, if you go against what you're told to say, you are a threat and you will be killed. There have been many incidences of journalists in the Middle East being shot, being killed, losing their jobs, and especially now it's a well-known tactic on the Palestinian territories. You report what comes out of Yasser Arafat. You do not go against the Palestinian media or you will be killed. And the tactics they're using right now is they're accusing reporters of being traitors, of being informant to the Israeli army, and they're killing them publicly because that's the accusation that they're sticking on them instead of them saying, well, he's not listening to what we want him to report and therefore that's why we killed him. Hezbollah published my picture in the Hezbollah magazine in Lebanon along with the Israelis news anchor for Mabat, the evening news, calling me a traitor, asking that I should be killed, calling me an Israeli informant, an Israeli spy. It was very dangerous for me to even travel within the security zone inside Lebanon.
Well, I understand you buried both of your parents in Jerusalem. What was your motivation for doing something like that?
Before I left Israel and came to the States, I wanted to make sure both my parents were buried in Israel. My father was living with me at the time when he died, and I buried him in Jerusalem on Mount Zion. But my mother had died a year and a half earlier. So before I came to the States, I went back to her grave, dug her out of her grave, took her out of her casket, put her in another casket in my car, and drove her to Israel. and buried her with my father, because I wanted to ensure that my children, yet unborn, will always know where my loyalty lies and will always be drawn to Israel. I believe actions speak louder than words. People can say anything. It's their actions that tell you exactly where they stand. And that's why I buried my parents on Mount Zion. If you are ever in Jerusalem and you are visiting the Oskar Schindler Cemetery, you will be passing by my parents' grave on your way to his tomb.
Do you think if the Israelis gave back the West Bank and Gaza, there would be peace?
No, it's not Gaza and the West Bank. Israel could give them Gaza and the West Bank, but the Palestinians want it all, not only Gaza and the West Bank. People need to realize when the PLO was formed in 1964, Gaza was illegally invaded and occupied by Egypt, and the West Bank was illegally invaded and occupied by Jordan. When the PLO was formed in 1964, it wasn't Gaza and the West Bank that Yasser Arafat was fighting to get. It was Israel proper that Yasser Arafat wanted. Today in the Palestinian Authority, under the Palestinian Authority in the Palestinian schools, when you see maps of Palestine, Israel doesn't exist. It shows the whole area as the map of Palestine. They want the whole land. They do not want Israel to exist in the Middle East. Israel has no place in the Middle East. They do not want any Jews living in Arabic territories. You look at Israel. Israel has Muslim Israeli citizens. They have Muslim in parliament in the Knesset. Show me one Arabic country in the world that has a Jew in its government. The Arabs hate the Jews, and they do not want the Jews in the Middle East. The Jews don't have a place in the Middle East. And no, Israel can give Gaza and can give back the West Bank to the Palestinians. It's not going to be enough, and it's not going to be peace, and they're going to be fighting to get more and more and more.
Well, what do you think about the Palestinian leadership?
I think the Palestinian leadership is corrupt. The Palestinian leadership is the cancer that is killing the Palestinians. If the Palestinian leaders cared about the Palestinian people, the least they can do is take those millions and millions of dollars that have poured into the Palestinian territories ever since the Palestinian Authority came into power in 1995. Millions of dollars have poured from the United States, from the European Union into the Palestinian territories and went into the pockets of Yasser Arafat and his cronies, while the Palestinians are still living in refugee camps under their own leadership. There is no other group in the world, no other group of people in the world live under their own leadership in refugee camps like rats, without dignity. They live on top of each other. The least the Palestinian leaders, if they care about their people, would take some of the money that's been allocated to improve the Palestinian territories and at least build townhomes for them. Let them live in dignity. Let them go to the bathroom in decent bathrooms. Let them live with respect. But instead, the Palestinian leadership pockets the money. It goes for bribery, for driving the Mercedeses, for driving the BMW, for fancy vacations, for fancy homes. Abu Mazen has a $1.5 million home in Gaza. How many Palestinians that live in Gaza live in a $1.5 million home? The Palestinians need to wake up.